What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing some much needed improvements to my giant 96-inch by 30-inch rolling workbench, or I should say rolling workbench. Now, I need to be honest with you guys. I had wholeheartedly intended on coming to the garage over the weekend and the beginning of this week and start working on the Genesis Coupe. Specifically, I need to continue working on repairing the front bumper. Now, I know it's on the car, but this thing still isn't actually finished being repaired. This was just temporarily put on so we could go to that trunk or treat event that we saw in a few videos back. The second project that I wanted to get started on for the Genesis was fixing the cracks in the front fender flare right there, as well as the small one that is on the rear fender flare right there. Now, obviously, none of that actually happened considering the intro of this video, and that was basically due to two factors. One being, and the most important being, which is actually kind of sad to admit, is that on Friday, Pokemon Violet came out, and yeah, there goes my whole weekend in the beginning of this week. So today is actually Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and that is the second reason why none of this stuff is actually getting done this week, because it is Wednesday, like I said, the day before Thanksgiving, and I don't want to start a couple of projects on the car and then just let it sit until the beginning of next week. I'd rather just start it at the beginning of next week. So I figured today would be the perfect time to do something on this workbench that I honestly should have done a long time ago, and that is replace the caster wheels, which is what is in this box right here. Now, a quick rundown on this workbench is I actually built this thing probably like 5 years ago now, back in like the 2017 era, when this car actually got rear-ended at a red light. And in order to keep it protected while I went through like a 6+ month insurance nightmare, because the kid who hit me was from New Hampshire and didn't have insurance, it was a mess. I put this car in my grandfather's garage. Now, while I was working on this thing, trying to get it ready and redone for the last iteration of this car, when it was digital camo with the black in the back, had 20 degrees of camber, I needed somewhere to work on the stuff that wasn't on the car, aka a workbench. So I built this workbench. Like I said, this is 96 inches, so a full 8-foot sheet of plywood by 30 inches wide. Now, I did 30 inches wide on the top, so that way I'd have 18 inches left over and I could put a nice bottom shelf in. And then I also have a little bit of a foot cutout, so that way when you're at the bench, you aren't just banging into the bottom shelf. Yet this has a 2x4 across the bottom, so the legs are nice and braced and they aren't going to flex or anything like that. You could stand on this thing, jump, have a dance party, do whatever you wanted. Another cool thing about this workbench has to pertain to this vise. Now, obviously, this thing isn't actually attached right now because I took it off like 3 weeks ago specifically to do this project that I'm finally doing today. But this vise is normally mounted to this workbench, but it is easily removable because I went ahead and I put in 3 threaded inserts, so that way I can just take 3 bolts, bolt that to the workbench, and then in today's case, when I don't need the vise or it's in the way, I can just take 3 bolts out, take this thing off, put it on the shelves, done. Now that rundown is pretty much out of the way, let's get on to today's topic, which is the lack of the rolling feature of this rolling workbench. Now, if you can come over here, this side still rolls pretty good. However, if you come to this side, one of, if not both of these wheels have flat spots in them. So I don't know if you guys can hear that, but this thing isn't actually rolling. It's just me dragging it across the flat spot of the wheel. Now, the wheel got a flat spot because it was accidentally moved by somebody else when it was at my grandfather's house. And the wheel was in the locked position and they just dragged it, put a flat spot on the wheel. And on top of that, they also broke the little axle in the wheel. So even if it wasn't flattened out, it wouldn't roll anyway because the axle on the little wheel caster is actually broke itself. Now, normally I wouldn't really care if this thing rolled well or not because I don't actually roll it around that much. However, a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 months ago, this thing actually broke on me. Now, if you guys don't know what this is just the mechanic's rolling seat from Harbor Freight. Now, I got this as a gift and I did like it at first when I was using it at my grandfather's garage, because like I said, well, I don't know if I said it in this video or not, but my grandfather's floors in his garage were super smooth, super flat. This thing, however, in this garage on this floor is terrible. And the other day I was wheeling it around, wasn't paying attention, and I got caught in the grate right here, broke the caster wheel, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna throw this thing away because I hate it anyway. It doesn't roll around in this garage because the floors are so bumpy. However, because this thing is so big and would have taken up way too much space in my trash can, I was like, let me try and give this thing a second shot, and I'll go ahead and buy it some new casters. So after a quick search on Amazon and like $15 to $20 later, I was able to find some casters that have all 4 swivels with locks that are slightly bigger in diameter to hopefully roll around better on this bumpy floor with studs that are big enough to clear the bottom frames and how these things mount. Now, happy to report, I didn't make a video on this thing because I figured nobody would care. However, I can't even express to you how much better and more enjoyable it is using this thing because it actually rolls around and is actually usable. Also speaking, for everybody who's going to ask, or hopefully not ask because I'm already going to say it right now, the links to the casters for the rolling cart as well as the ones that I'm going to be using on the Workbench will be listed in the link below. Now, I keep saying that in all these videos because it's like a running joke where every video I watch on YouTube from other people, there are always like links in the description. Then I made YouTube videos, didn't realize that everybody in the comment section actually does constantly ask for the links in the description. So therefore, links are in the description. To take a quick look at these things before we actually flip this Workbench over and get these installed, which then you won't be able to see them very well, these are 4-inch casters. The reason I went with 4-inch casters is because the bigger the caster is, the better it rolls around on uneven, bumpy floors. Now, this was a great example done here because the original wheels that came with this thing from Harbor Freight, super tiny, they're also a bad compound. So when I upgraded to these casters, I went to a better compound with a bigger diameter, hence why it rolls so much better in this bumpy floor. Now, like I said also, this Workbench was originally built at my grandfather's house with smooth, flat floors, so I didn't have to go overkill on wheel diameter as well as care too much about the compound that we used on these wheels. However, now that I'm here and I'm upgrading them, we went with the bigger, better wheels like you see here. A couple more quick features that I was looking for in casters specifically was to have all 4 casters swivel as well as lock. Now, the lock on these things, super big, super easy to press, and then it's super easy to flick up to unlock it. That was a big key feature. I wasn't going to mention this either, but I guess I should just in case anybody's wondering. It does come with hardware, screws right here, as well as nuts and bolts if you guys are going to use that. Since they come with it, I'm just going to use these screws. Now, let's flip this thing over and let's get started. Ooh, magic. Now, back to all seriousness, if anybody's wondering how this thing is built, here's a quick pan shot of the frame for the tabletop, going up to the legs to the frame for the base, bottom shelf with the legs, and the center brace so the legs aren't flexing. Hopefully, that gives you a better idea in case you want to build this or something similar. Alrighty, and just like that, all 4 new casters are installed on the bottom of the Workbench. Now, I will point out one little area that did cause me a little bit of trouble, is we did get a split right here. Now, this corner was actually already splitting from the old screws because those screws were just regular wood screws and they were so thin, you normally don't have to pre-drill these. Now, I didn't pre-drill those, or at least I don't remember pre-drilling them. So this was already cracking, which is why I went ahead and pre-drilled the holes for these new screws because they were so much bigger. Now, I probably could have used a bigger screw, or a bigger drill bit, I should say, for this screw, but I didn't want to lose grip strength on the screw in the hole. So I kind of risked it here and it did split a little bit, but no big deal. I don't really care too much. I don't really mind because there are 3 more screws holding this thing in. Plus this is the backside, so even if it does split, we're not looking at it, but no big deal. Just know when you're doing this fresh, just pre-drill it. I think I used a 9/16 drill for these specific screws that came with this. Now, another thing to note is that these base plates for these new casters are way bigger than the base plates on the old casters. As you can see, these are squares, where these are rectangles. So on the 2 front legs, this fourth hole was really close to the edge of the 2x4 post, so that's why I drove these in pretty crooked, so that way that just didn't split, because after seeing this one split, I didn't want to have that happen again. Now, with all that being said, let's flip this thing over and see how much better these casters are. Now, moment of truth here. Let's see how well this thing rolls with the new casters. Now, I'm gonna just start pushing this thing and pulling it from the middle, because with the old broken caster, I couldn't do that. So, oh yeah. Imagine if that hit my car or my wheel. That would have been bad. But as you can see, these things rolling super smooth. Probably can't hear me because of how well it's rolling, but here, let me try and do one more thing without hitting the car. There you go. I think I've proved the point. This thing rolls. Alrighty, and on that note, guys, we're effectively going to wrap up today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this nice quick little kind of garage project the week of Thanksgiving. Next week though, I really need to start working on this car. It's taking way too long. I mean, this car should have been done last April, now it's November. Actually, it's almost December. Next week is going to be December. This car needs to be worked on. So hopefully that happens next week. Peace out. I'll catch you on the next one.